Recording started.
Run
What's
it.
up, guys? Welcome to the Salience Project. I'm Alec Cosio. This is Alexi Cortez, and this is a special guest that we brought in today. Lee, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Lee Benting. I am originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm 23 years old, and I met Alec through soccer. And I'm glad to be here. It's my first time, and I'm ready to learn and get some good things out of this meeting.
Okay.
Nice.
Sounds like soccer brings everybody together, man. I love it.
It really does.
Is that how you guys met?
Yeah, exactly. We met. Played in college at Florida Southern together, and been boys ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lexi, it's Lee's trying to go to school. He has 2 years of eligibility again, and I was like, dude, you got to get out to Florida. You got to.
Yeah, you gotta come check out Florida, man.
Yeah, that would be really cool, dude.
Over here. I'm trying to get Alec to move over here.
You're in Florida at the moment?
Yeah. That's
Oh,
right.
okay, nice.
Yeah, man.
What part of Florida are you from?
I'm from St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay area, but currently live in Lakeland, which is like Central Florida.
Okay. Is that far from where you guys went to school?
It's in the same city that we went to school. I
Very
live
cool.
like 10 minutes from where we went to school.
Very cool. So, yeah, that's the introduction. Welcome to the Salience Project. Here at the Salience Project, we use science-based tools and protocols to help optimize the human experience. Saliency detection is considered to be the key attentional mechanism that facilitates learning and survival by enabling organisms to focus their limited subset perceptual and cognitive resources on the most pertinent subset of available sensory data. Building interoceptive habits to help you change the lifestyle and behavior that you want to become more optimal version of yourself by being more comfortable in your own skin. Alexi, talking about saliency, I had a mess up. I'm helping Lee with his car. He has a water pump leak in his car, and we were doing the repair, and there's a step-by-step process, and I missed a step, and I look back, and this part that I'm holding in my hand has to go behind the timing belt, and I'm like, oh crap.
So you had to do everything.
Yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot going on, It's like when you're repairing a motor, there's a lot of moving parts. It's like a puzzle in your face, and I just overlooked it. I was really excited yesterday. We got the repair done, and I just overlooked it. There's a lot of things happening in your surroundings, and things get misplaced.
Yeah.
So, a little bit about the show today. I want to do the show on self-study and the neuroscience and psychology of self-study, the habits of behaviors to become more reflexive, so it doesn't require as much brain friction. Different from reflexes, making a habit reflexive makes it easier for you to complete the habit.
All right, so the neuroscience behind.
Do what?
Do I look like I'm in space?
Yeah, it does.
That's sick. But yeah, so keep going with the neuroscience behind habit forming and
yeah. So what I realized is that the habits become registered in your brain as chemical pathways from your neurons, right? They send signals back and forth that can be translated into something like binary, if you will, for coders out there. But what it does is
that's
basically
like ones and twos, right? Or zeros and ones.
Ones and zeros, but there's more to that because there's more neuromodulators than just ones and zeros.
Yeah, of course.
On and off. It's like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, acetylcholine. All these neuromodulators get represented in your brain in different areas, and they work with different synapses. And so what I came to understand is that habits are actually just synapses firing back and forth, sending signals by the sensory data coming in from your surroundings. And so basically, what you see is what gets interpreted, and then your body reacts to what you see from the signal in your brain, right? And so we can see things and they become habit forming. For example, I see my phone and it takes little resistance for me to go pick it up, right? As opposed to I see 100-pound dumbbell next to me and it requires a lot of friction for me to pick it up. And those become habit that are wired in your brain and wired in your person. And what I realize is you can use self-study So the meditation practice or, reflection process, whatever you want to call it, you can use self-study to rewire the neurochemistry in your brain.
Absolutely.
So this becomes eye-opening because as you want to hone your saliency, now you know how the software affects the hardware, and now you know that you can control the software using saliency. And so it becomes this process of reflection, like living present mind, but reflecting in moments in time so that you can catch yourself.
Right. So it's like, say I have a stressful event and I tend to smoke cigarettes when I'm stressed. Like there's really not much thought process that goes on there. It's like stress. Let's light up this cigarette right now and relieve some stress. And that we usually form bad habits in those kind of events where it's like you can use these stressful events because of the neurochemistry that's involved with stress in order to change your habits, right? And then so while you're talking about that, I was reading. You wrote here 2.5 weeks to 10 weeks to make a behavior unconscious. 85% chance they would perform the behavior each day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Lee, have you discussed much of this with Alec? Much of this habit forming?
We've had small conversations about habit forming, and just to kind of extend or expand on what you were saying, like I think a lot of habit forming has got to do with comfort or discomfort. Like you said, if you're in a stressful situation, the reason why you'll go to the cigarette is because it's comfortable, it's easy, it's a quick fix, Whereas the difficult thing to do would be to reject and to say no to the cigarette, which is often much more challenging and much more emotionally and mentally taxing than quickly lighting one up.
Absolutely. And then so to that it gets to where it's like the more where Alec was saying it's more friction to go pick up a dumbbell, more mental friction where I have to actually like force myself to go do that. The more I say I'm going to tackle this stressful situation without a cigarette, like the easier that becomes.
Yeah.
Right? And then so it's initially to change a habit, there's a lot of friction, a lot of mental effort. But as we continue to be conscious and reflect on how we react to certain situations, then it becomes easier to choose the positive behavior, I guess you would say.
Yes, it just requires less mental effort.
Yeah. And then so as you walked away, Alex, I was trying to ask you, like, so this 2.5 weeks to 10 weeks to make a behavior unconscious. What exactly are you doing in order to make that happen? Like what's the protocol? Like what are
So okay, this is fascinating, and the more I dove into habit forming and the function behind it and the neuroscience behind it, the more I was fascinated with the understanding of how the things that we have been talking about, Alexi, cycles, we did an episode on habit forming, cognitive focus. A lot of these things are starting to line up for me. Contentment, self-discipline, mindset. A lot of these things go into play when it comes to autonomy, the conversation that we had last time. A lot of these things go into place when you think about your everyday life cycle as a certain amount of time that you have to do X number of things, X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
And habits become integral because that is your daily practice of how you cope with yourself, with experience, with all the things that require saliency to exist. And it becomes it's a very powerful tool. So 2 to 10 weeks is about the number, if you want to put it, in time that it requires something to become an unconscious behavior, which means that you will do it 85% of the time when variable A and variable C are met, requirements are met.
Absolutely.
If I see A in time, I make this conscious decision. I do B, right? Trigger is A, action is B, reward is C. And so when A and C are met, B happens. Okay, so when the requirements of a stressful situation, right, and my blood pressure goes up, and I start having all of these triggers happen. Now my mind just goes, okay, cool. There's certain chemicals being released. Been a pattern of this. My brain actually, there's been a pattern of this. Therefore, I should respond with blah. And then after blah, you get that feeling of serotonin. Okay, good. We did good. We survived.
So
this is why the dopamine is very important, because dopamine is released under a stressful situation. When you're having a stressful situation, dopamine is released, which is the motivation chemical to do certain action that will give you the serotonin. And it's like this, boom, all of it's happening at the same time, live feed.
Yeah, it's all working together.
Yeah, exactly. To make this experience so vivid for the human condition. You know, we talked about being like, in one of our earlier episodes, we talked about being, you know, ancient beings in a modern world, where our body has been adapted for thousands and thousands of years in order to evolve these certain functions that allow us to exist. So Lee, just quickly, how's this sitting with you? Like, I know we've jumped into like something very deep. Alexi and I have been studying and like working pretty hard in this on this project, and it's just that, like, the more we uncover, the more fascinated we become, and the more ease we get experience. Like, the more ease my daily life is, and less stress. Exactly. So how's this sitting with you? Like, what is, as somebody who knows nothing of the Salience project other than what I post on my social for like my friends like you, how do you plug yourself in?
I know a little bit about Salience from conversations I've had with people, the books I've read, and things that I've experienced. So I understand. I have a very good like base and foundation of what you guys are speaking about. But just for people who don't fully grasp the concepts and the illustrations and the pictures you're trying to paint in people's heads, like, in order for all of this to work, like you mentioned it earlier, you really have to be present. Like, you have to be in tune with yourself. You have to be at one with yourself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Like, and that's why like self-study is the topic of this conversation.
In order for self-study to work, you have to be 100% committed. If you're wanting to make a change, if you want to make that change 99.999%, it's still not going to be enough. It has to be all in or nothing.
Absolutely.
And with self-study, you have to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. You have to be brutally honest. That's the hardest part. You have to be honest, because at the end of the day, we all have that voice inside our head that's you. That's exactly. You. It's you. We all have that. Exactly. So, and listening to that voice and being honest is so important, because there's no growth that comes with a lie.
Oh, that's profound, bro.
I like that.
That's profound. I like that. Yeah, you're absolutely on it. Alexi, yeah, I was just before you left, you know, he was just talking about how, you know, in order for all of this to work, saliency to work, you have to be fully present.
Yeah, I heard that before. I got
fully present. Like, your awareness has to be so sharp that nothing can slip your focus. Like,
how would you train that?
Right. So I had this mistake with the car, right? Yeah. And what that's teaching me is the only way to hit it every time is to do it over and over again.
And miss it and miss it sometimes.
And miss it. So now
understand, like, with yourself, it's like, it's not Lee's fault for talking to me while I was doing it. It's my fault for being distracted while Lee was talking to me.
Absolutely. You know, while me and Lee were working together trying to accomplish this. And, you know, it's like, the next time I do the car, or I do a car repair, I will be twice as focused. I don't even think it was that.
I think it was in the elation and in the excitement of having the car turn on and knowing that, okay, we got this. That's when it could have
slipped my mind. Yeah. Because I went into a state of completion when the job was not done yet.
Yes.
And
That's the same
that
kind of concept of how it's like the most likely time to get scored on is right after you
Oh yeah,
score.
yeah, yeah.
You
That's
know what I mean?
absolutely.
Because you like switch off
Yeah.
for a split second, and it's like the
hmm
same kind of concept that you're talking about. Like you had your little victory, got the car turned on, sounding perfect, and then it's
Yeah,
like you think
Lex,
it's game over, but
that was the craziest part is like the the job was done. Like we did the repair. The
yeah,
repair and the car
yeah.
worked, but it was the assembly that got me. You know,
yeah, yeah.
that's so crazy. Like I should have been focused on the finish line Z and I got excited at C and I missed the rest.
And that's where like in Huberman when he talks about like dopamine, like you got to be careful with when you reward yourself and how much you reward yourself because it you lose the motivation to complete the job 100% the way that you had before you got your small little
Or
victory,
you
right?
lose
So it's like,
focus. Like you lose
yeah,
focus on what you were supposed to be doing because you're in another state. Like
yeah, you're
you're
out
in
of that
another
hunting state, out of the go get like satisfy this need that dopamine is released for. Like you got it,
absolutely.
and then so
That
it's like
is
now we lose that focus, right? So it's how can we ourselves and help others like learn this valuable skill
hmm
of of recognizing, okay, yeah, this is very good that we completed this, accomplished this, but like the job's not done. Like we still have to focus on what we set our minds to, what our purpose is. And it's like, how do you, because I
ooh,
agree, you have to
yes.
be
And
ultra
so
aware. And it's like we became ultra aware, and I can't speak for
ultra
Lee
aware. I
so
love
much,
that. We need to
but
hey, add that to our hashtag, ultra aware.
ultra aware, right? But it's we became ultra aware through the mistakes we've made, through like our trials and tribulations, and us accepting them wholeheartedly as they are. Um, but most people, like you said, like we said, are that it's difficult for them to be brutally honest with themselves.
hmm
And then, so how do you
Right.
switch that?
How do you what was that say? Sorry again?
How do you like get someone to understand that like you lie to yourself constantly, like you're just, you know what I mean?
Because you
Like because
can't get them
people,
to understand, but the outcomes of their experiences should push them in that direction if they're aware enough to focus. Like to
but it doesn't. Obviously,
if
it
it's in
doesn't
their
always.
right. And so what that means is like there's a level of cognitive perception or cognitive um, reality that doesn't sit. They're missing some foundational pieces in order to get to this level of higher state awareness. And I think that that's something that like we talked about, Alexi, in the previous call, was you have to go through the autonomy process. You have to go through that. Like that has to be a foundational piece in order for you to carry on in understanding how the world works. You
So
know,
you have to be alone, feel alone,
you have to do
right?
it all.
Because the
Yeah.
only way to truly be autonomous is when you realize that like there's nobody else out there that really has your back like that. You know what I'm saying? And like everybody has those certain like because I've never been truly alone. Like I've got a loving family, you know, loving friends, but like when it came to my confidence and my mindset in soccer, I didn't have friends or a coach or a parent to turn to. It was like me and myself. Like I had to figure it out for myself. My back was against the wall and I went down swinging. You know, I figured it out eventually. And I was like that was where I felt most alone in my life. You know, I wasn't physically alone. I wasn't even mentally alone for a lot of aspects, except for that one aspect where I never even voiced it to anybody. You know what I mean? It was just me, myself, and then um, it was actually really funny because when I was playing for the Tropics, I went and saw a sports psychologist, right? And just because I was not confident in myself, like my mindset was shit, like you know, I just like doubted myself every step of the way. And I never voiced that to anybody before going to see a sports psychologist. Like it was always stuck in my head. And then as soon as I went, like I don't remember that was like 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, and I don't remember what the sports psychologist said to me. Like that, like what stuck out to me and what I remember the most is like as I was saying it out loud, like it was finally like coming into like my mind where I was like, that's kind of silly that you think that way, you know? And I was like, I remember
Right.
having the discourse with myself, like because I finally
In
got
his
it
office.
outside. I was like, well, that's just silly, Alexi. Like you know better than that. Like, but it was always just an internal battle. Now that I was getting it out to somebody else, I was able to like analyze myself
So
and how I was talking.
you really have to like put it out there, it's not really out there until it's out there, right?
Mhm.
That's like one of the biggest takeaways from that story.
Exactly.
And you have to get it out there. So coming back to this concept of self-study, we've talked about the neuroscience, we've talked about the psychology of it. Habits really come down to how you organize your behavior and how you compartmentalize your reflexes. And you require brain function to do it. There requires outside stimulus to understand it and to learn from it. But you want to make conscious behaviors unconscious. And like Alexi has talked about before in this, through our discussions, our body and mind want to automate everything. So you have to form these neuroplastic pathways or use neuroplasticity to form new pathways and change your behavior to get these habits functional. They're not really functional until they require 80%, until they're done 80% of the time when requirement A and C are met.
That's without much mental thought.
That's without much mental friction. Yeah. Right. Of course. So there's two types of habits, and the psychology tells us there's two types of habits that people form, and those are goal-based habits and identity-based habits. So these are very important because those are what the psychology and neuroscience tell us about how human behavior works and how we establish, build, and establish, generate, and create habits. Because a habit, it doesn't just like become something out of the nowhere. You have to like train it, and you have to work it, and you have to grind it. And so looking at goal-based habits versus identity-based habits, they represent different things in our lives. So a goal-based habit, for example, would be for me to exercise every morning because it checks a box, right? So that's a goal-based habit. Exercise every morning. Boom, done. Now, if you take that same habit and you look at it from the identity perspective, well, what about the habit speaks towards my interpersonal identity? And that would be, you want to be a healthy person. So that's how you could approach it from an identity habit perspective. But they represent different things, right? And so if you evaluate your everyday life and you understand your compartmentalized behavior, obviously every day is different, but the things that you're doing consistently, you can actually start to see what your habits are. And then you can take new habits that you want to create and you can start plugging them into your daily life.
So we should be trying to form more identity habits than goal-based habits.
Well, depending on what you're working towards, because depending on what you want in life, those could fall under different categories.
I don't know if I agree or disagree. Where it's like, because what the thought that's coming into my mind is like, okay, I don't know, a goal-based habit could be like, I don't know, give me a goal-based habit.
A goal-based habit could be, go to the gym every day.
Okay. Right.
That's a goal-based habit.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Or make your bed every day.
Okay. Right. To make my bed every day. Let's use that one. Right. So that's my goal, just to check off a box. Right. But then like where my identity is to be like, if my identity is let's say list of characteristics, I'm passionate, persistent, I'm detailed, I'm organized. I'm listed these list of things. Right. Where it's like, now I can make my bed every day into an identity habit because I am someone that is on top of everything, right? I'm detailed.
Right.
I don't and then so it's like that leads towards my identity, and it could be something like, my goal-based habit is training every day in soccer to be a professional soccer player. Like that's just the goal. Where it's like my identity is passionate, persistent, courageous.
Right.
Like regardless of how my body's feeling or my mind is feeling, like I'm gonna give it a go if I'm healthy, right? And then so it's like we can, with a different perspective on the same topic, like you were saying, like I can take any goal-based habit and turn it into an identity-based habit. And then where it should be like, now I need to find habits that align with my identity, right? Where it's like my identity, is like, that's what has got us into the habit of getting on these calls once a week.
Right.
It has nothing. There's no goal really, other like I'm not here trying to do this to make the most famous podcast in the world, or to, like, you know, it's like my identity and purpose align with inspiring others to be the greatest version of themselves. And because that is my identity, like, this habit has been formed as a identity-based habit.
Right. And
Rather
I think one of the things that I'm learning from the literature is that goal-based habits are where we start, and then they become identity-based habits if they are meant to be, if they're like meant to stick.
Okay.
Like if they're meant to stick. For example, a goal-based habit of mine is to only eat within an 8-hour window. Within an 8-hour window. That's a goal-based habit for me. I don't necessarily know how that would align with an identity-based habit. Other than the idea behind it is that I want to fast and let my gut digest and rest.
Yeah, the most efficient human that you can possibly be.
Right.
Right.
That could be the identity. That could align with my identity. So yeah, and so you what you do is you start to, going back to where we were talking about with cycles. You know, you start to plug in these new habits, and do them as much as possible 85% of the time. And the 2.5 weeks to 10 weeks to make a behavior unconscious has been aligned is the, I guess, the range of time for different habits to form. For example, something that requires a lot more mental friction would probably take a little bit longer to form than something that doesn't require as much mental friction. And so it's a myth that, you know, it takes 21 days to make it a habit stick.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be a range.
Of course.
And right. So it's like with the idea of the mental friction, it's like, I mean, my mindset towards X would change the amount of friction that I have towards it, right? Where it's like you and I, like, we know what healthy food is all about. Like, we actually enjoy it for the most part. So there's not a lot of mental friction to go grab an avocado and eat it straight with some salt. Like, you know, that's easy for us because our mindset towards healthy food is different than someone that hasn't been raised in that and hasn't been raised in an athletic environment or developed in an athletic environment, where it's like they have to really push and pull on themselves to go eat this avocado.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think one of the cheat codes that I'm learning is that you can use, you know, new behaviors and self-study to, like, begin to establish those new behavior patterns. You know, somebody who wants to use that self-study practice and be brutally honest, like Lee was talking about, can make better choices possible. It's not impossible. And I think more people need to be empowered to have that possibility around them. You know, I'm trying myself to mark my habits down and figure out which ones I want to stick with and which ones I don't, and which ones serve me and which ones don't, and using, you know, identity to drive that, and then understanding how I can create goals in order to make those habits more attainable. And doing more mental gymnastics allows you to make these ridiculous these ridiculous ideas more feasible, and it reduces the distance. It shortens the gap between impossible and possible. And I think that that's what a lot of people would benefit from, you know, going into just having a practice of self-study or creating or starting or journaling or whatever it looks like. You know, it's very, I don't even know, I'm out of words. Like, it's remarkable. It's honestly remarkable. It's remarkable that we have these blessings and we're able to do these things and experience them in these ways. And, you know, we just have to be, like we talked about in the one episode, you know, express more gratitude for all the amazingness and the failures. Like, talking to you about the car situation where I messed up. Like, I'm excited because I had that aha moment of why. Mm-hmm. And now I can be different, and now I can do different.
You can navigate it,
and I can navigate differently
in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, like, the different habits, you know, because, like, we're talking about, like, self-studying and, like, how do you, like, just being aware of your reactions and your actions towards certain ideas and certain contingencies. And it's like, I think helping people understand that there's all different kinds of habits. Like there's physical habits where it's like every time the first thing I do when I wake up is brush my teeth, make my bed. That's like a physical habit, you know. And then like I have a habit of not eating until after 12 o'clock. And then like, but there's mental habits where it's like, you know, like I definitely was the person that like when I would make a mistake, I had the habit of being like, oh, I'm shit. Like even though I'm joking around, like you know, like I was saying it out loud. Like that was a mental habit that I had. Like I made a mistake, I would say, oh, I'm shit, like and put it out there, right? And then it's like I had to switch that habit up. So I would say like that's like a cognitive mental habit where it's like or like you know when I have a good performance I think highly of myself, like that's a habit. Or and then when I have a bad performance I think negatively of myself, like that was a habit. Rather than the habit now is regardless of a good or bad performance I'm examining how I could have been better either way. Like what could I have done better in this way, not beating myself up, but just because I'm in the mindset of I want to be the most efficient being that Alexi Cortez can be, right? And then
Yeah.
so yeah, so Lee, what do you think about all this?
No, I think these are really great points, and I don't think there's a set way to go about self-study. Like for me, it might be writing things down. For you, it might be meditation. For Alec, it might be something else. So, like experimenting different ways of self-study, I would mention as a point to listeners too, because regardless of what we say, it might work for you, it might not, but everyone has to find their own thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like how you said that because like something that really made me self-aware was speaking out loud to a sports psychologist. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like that allowed me to examine myself in a way that I never really did beforehand. You know, and then so it's like that way worked for me in that instance.
Right.
And
And
then
me
now,
expressing my story and you guys helping me work through that moment, you know,
yeah,
gave me that aha moment. So self-study happens in different forms. It happens in different mediums. It happens in different states. But the idea is to create a reflexive habit of having self-study be a part of your awareness and a part of your experience. And going back to self-study and habits, you know, whether something is context dependent or context independent will determine, you know, the state that you are in. For example, how you handle things with your mom, Alexi, in your house is different from how you handle things with somebody else's mom outside of your house. And that context dependence will create your almost like reaction. So if you're aware of your surroundings and if you're aware of what's going on around you and how your environment is affecting you, you can actually start to understand like playing the who, what, where, when, why game in your head is an easy way to understand how to be more present.
Hmm.
It's just they're just simple tools.
so
But
Lee, what kind of, I guess this is more for you because I know Alec pretty well. Is like, what kind of questions are you asking yourself, like in certain scenarios and whatnot? You know, does that question make sense to you?
That question does make sense. So let's just say if I have set a goal and I've failed, I haven't hit the mark. At first, I would also have that like, oh, like I'm shit, like
Yeah.
I didn't do what I set out to do. But once that feeling subsides, and for some people it may take a couple hours. Good for you if it takes a couple hours. For some people it might take a day, a week, a month. But once you get over that initial dip, it's really time to sit down and again be brutally honest with yourself. Like you need to take yourself out of your perspective and look at it from a bird's eye view. You need to take in all of the variables, all of the factors as to why you failed, and often it'll always lead back to you. Control
yeah,
control the things that are control the controllables. Control the controllables.
right. And almost like letting go, like you talk about from the bird's eye view, it's important to just let go of how that like all the attachment to that moment and just look at it from an outside perspective.
Hmm.
It's important. And sometimes you can't do that in the moment. Like you have to have that moment first before you can do the reflecting process. That's why it's called
Hmm.
reflecting, because you can't do it in the moment. So
Yeah.
whatever happens, happens, and just let go of the result and then come back and make it better
Yeah. Learn
with
something.
future you. Yeah. Learn something, higher self you returns, makes it better, you know, and that's important. So there's a few things that make habits possible. And we talked about this in the habit forming video, Alexi, that we talked about. But they're just 4 tools. You got to make the habit obvious. You have to make it attractive. It has to be easy, and it has to be satisfying. Those are 4 easy ways to make a reflecting habit possible. 4 easy tools. So just think about whatever works for you. Coming back to what Lee was talking about, whatever it allows you to have those experiences, whatever that looks like. Just those are the 4 requirements. Lexi, I know we've talked about like emotionality and how it affects our everyday experience, but you know, moving out of, like you talked about, you being in the frustrated moments, you know, how did you deal with understanding how to build more habits or like better reaction processes? Because I know we've gone through some stressful situations together or whatever, but letting go of the attachment and letting go and just letting it happen, like coming back and talking about it and apologizing face to face. How did when did you know? Like when did we know that it was time to like let it go and die?
Well, yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay.
But I guess it's more like
because that lasted for a while. Like
it was a long time, but it's like we were so caught up in how each other should be, and like I was like Alex should be this way, and you were like Alexi should be this way, and we were both just like, and then once we just came to the conclusion that like, I mean that you're you and I'm me, and I'm gonna live my life, and that like, I mean that. Like no matter who you are, I'll always have your back. You know what I mean? And it's like I think that once we came to that conclusion, that problem kind of let itself go. But it's like the more like when I realized like that, like when I would look back and I would be like, okay, when I really tried to control the things that I couldn't control, like life always went south, or like things always went south. And I was like, when I just let go of and I look at my past and I just let go of certain situations and just let them go, they usually turned out to be the best. And it didn't matter what the situation was or like what had happened in X event. It was about like it was once I realized that it's just there to teach me something. It's like it's just there. Like what can I learn from it rather than trying to resist it or trying to change it or control it. It's like it happened. How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better teammate? How can I be a better whatever I need to be in this moment? And it's like so. Yeah, once I because there's only one person I can control in this life, and that's me. And like I can't control my children when I have them, can't control my parents, can't control my friends, can't control my players that are on my team. I can only control how I react, how I show up, what I do, and hopefully that like me leading by example inspires them to do what is the most efficient route, right? To follow the most efficient path. So yeah, once I realized that.
But you had to do that process. Like, long story short, you know, like we had a friendship situation and it lasted for a long time and it made us feel a certain type of way. And we had to go through that moment and then have this aha, truthful, honest realization with ourselves and then let go and then have the resolve. And that's how like conflict, it is sometimes, you know, you have that moment of like, lots and lots and lots of sensation, like lots of feeling, like lots of reality hits you hard and you feel low and small and like it's just tiny and whatever. It's a lot of just feeling. That's it. It's just feeling. Nothing changes. It's just feeling.
Yeah.
And then you have to hit that moment of like, I can choose to be honest about the situation and just let the feeling go. But you have to go back and deal with it. That doesn't happen unless you sit down and you're brutally honest and you have that like you with yourself in the psychologist room, Alexi, and me with myself. And right now, you know, you have to have that moment of honesty. Like I was in this state. I did do this. This was the result. I'm blah, 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 you know, and mend it, fix it, heal it. And then you can move on.
Yeah. Once you come to the conclusion that it is what it is, and then you can move forward from that, right? Because it's like I can't change it anymore. Couldn't change it back then, but we can keep moving forward.
And you have that power. You have that power. You have the capacity to go make wrongs right. And you have the tools, and it just requires a powerful self-study practice, a consistent one. you know? All right, guys. I think this wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for a very powerful, moving conversation. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but that was awesome. You guys are amazing.
As we go on, it gets better and better, you know?
Yeah,
We fail,
you
and we
guys
just learn, and we just improve.
Fail,
And it's
you
like,
learn, you move forward.
that. Exactly. And I think
You
that,
fail
I think
forward.
what I love most
fail
about
forward.
this,
I love that.
Alec, is is that we're just playing, like we're just messing around, like we're experimenting, like having conversations, like we'll watch them on YouTube, we'll see what's good, and then we just keep improving. And it's like, oh, we can do this better, we can structure this differently. Oh, like we can, and we should be openly criticizing each other, because I mean, we know it comes from a place of love, and it's not like I'm here to make you feel bad. I'm here to help you be the best you, and you guys are here to help me be the best me. And I think that's what I love most about this journey that we've gone on together. It's like, it's just like, it's given me more courage to experiment and explore in my personal business.
It's a sandbox. It's a safe sandbox of life. And yeah, you're absolutely right.
Sandbox of life.
I don't know how to explain it. We've just created a sandbox, and we come and play, and it's cool because we get these breakthroughs. And I love the concept of honing your ultra awareness. I want to hone my ultra awareness. I want to go ultra instinct and just have this constant sensation of just correctness, if you will.
And I think something we should be clear about too is like this whole concept of play that Andrew Huberman talks about, where it allows us to take on different roles within society. Like when I play, I could be a leader one minute, and then I could be a follower the next when I'm playing games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's that allows us to really experiment and explore with what works in what situation. I am catch me on the field, I'm a completely different person.
That's
competitor.
You know what I mean? I'm an animal. I let it all out. I ain't giving you shit.
I injure myself for going hard in a scrimmage because I'm just instinct idiot. And it's my dude.
One of
so much.
Professional soccer players spoke about that, and he referred to it about putting on a mask. When you step on the field, it's a show. You turn into someone else. You turn into someone else, and you have to play the role. But as soon as the game,
just play that role.
You have to play the role, and as soon as the game's over, you can be somebody different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So,
all right, guys.
I would like to say I think they're all a part of us. Those roles, it's just different qualities are needed at different times. Once you realize that, then you can learn to really hone when to use anger, when to use sadness, when to use, laughter and joy and spreading love. But there's different time and place for all of it.
Absolutely.
But
cool, guys.
But thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
You guys have an amazing day.
Have an amazing day, guys.
Do
Bye-bye.
great shit.
Yeah, do great shit.